My sister borrowed my entire emergency fund of $75,000, promising to return it after her husband's guaranteed business deal. But when I found their Instagram posts from luxury European vacation, she blocked my number and told family I was harassing her for money. That was 8 months ago. Today, I'm sitting across from Detective Martinez, filing fraud charges against my own flesh and blood, and honestly, I've never felt more certain about anything in my life. Let me back up. My sister Emma has always been the golden child. While I worked double shifts at Target during high school to save for college, she got a full ride courtesy of mom and dad. While I lived on ramen noodles and worked through my business degree, she studied abroad in Italy on the family dime. Not that I'm bitter, I made my own way, built my own path. By 28, I owned a small but profitable digital marketing consultancy, had a solid emergency fund, and was finally feeling stable after years of financial anxiety. Emma, on the other hand, married straight out of college to Derek, a wannabe entrepreneur who pitched everything from cryptocurrency schemes to essential oil MLMs. They lived in a rented McMansion in the suburbs, drove leased BMWs, and posted constantly about their blessed life while asking family for money behind closed doors. I'd heard whispers, mom mentioning they were going through a rough patch, dad grumbling about Derek's latest failed venture, but Emma and I weren't close enough for me to know the real details. That changed on a rainy Tuesday in March. I was working late in my home office when Emma called, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her words. She said Derek's business partner had disappeared with their investment money, they were facing bankruptcy, and the bank was threatening foreclosure. She needed help, just temporarily, to save everything they'd worked for. The amount? $75,000? My entire emergency fund. I'd spent 7 years building that safety net, putting away every spare dollar, skipping vacations, driving my Honda Civic until it wheezed. That money represented security, peace of mind, the buffer between me and the financial instability that had haunted my childhood. But Emma was family. She promised it was temporary, 6 weeks, 8 at most. Derek had another deal lined up, a sure thing with guaranteed returns. They'd pay me back with interest. My first instinct was to ask for a written agreement. Emma's reaction was swift and devastating, tears flowing harder, voice breaking as she asked how I could treat family like a business transaction. Was I really going to make her sign papers when she was desperate? Didn't I trust her? The guilt hit like a physical blow. Against every financial instinct I'd developed, I transferred the money. $75,000. Gone in one click. Update. The responses to my original post were overwhelming. Thank you for validating what I already knew deep down. Several people shared similar family betrayals. The hardest part was realizing I'd ignored my own business instincts for the sake of family. Would you have demanded a written agreement from a sibling? The first red flag should have been how quickly Emma's tears dried up after I confirmed the transfer. 1 minute she was sobbing about losing everything. The next she was cheerfully telling me about Derek's amazing new opportunity and how they'd definitely have my money back by May 1st. She even started talking about taking me to dinner at some fancy steakhouse once everything was sorted out. Casual, like we were planning a weekend hangout instead of discussing the largest financial transaction of my life. For the first month, I tried to be patient. Emma sent occasional updates. Derek was finalizing contracts, investors were very interested, everything was moving forward perfectly. But I'd learned to recognize the signs of Derek's schemes over the years, the vague descriptions, the urgent timelines, the promises of unrealistic returns. He'd pulled this routine with mutual funds, real estate flipping, that disastrous food truck venture that lasted exactly 3 months. Each failure had cost them money they didn't have, money they'd borrowed from family, or charged to credit cards. Emma had always been his enabler, defending his decisions even when they led to obvious failure. When his cryptocurrency investment wiped out their wedding fund, she blamed market manipulation. When his consulting business folded after 6 months, she said his clients just couldn't appreciate his vision. She lived in a bubble of willful ignorance, posting Instagram stories about entrepreneurial journeys and building something amazing while their debt mounted. I knew their lifestyle was unsustainable. The designer handbags, the weekly date, nights at expensive restaurants, the constant shopping hauls Emma documented on social media. They projected success while borrowing money from family, maxing out credit cards, and living paycheck to paycheck. Dad had mentioned helping them with their mortgage twice last year. Mom had covered Emma's car payment when Derek's last venture collapsed. When May 1st came and went without a word, I started asking questions. That's when the communication got spotty. My texts took hours to get responses. My calls went straight to voicemail. When Emma finally called back, her tone had changed completely. Defensive, irritated, like I was being unreasonable for expecting updates on my own money. By mid-May, my patience was wearing thin. I'd sent polite reminder texts, left casual voicemails, Even reached out to Derek directly. Nothing. Then one evening, scrolling mindlessly through Instagram, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Emma's latest post showed her in a flowing, white dress, arms outstretched against the backdrop of Santorini's famous blue domes. The caption read, "Living our best life in Greece. Sometimes the universe just aligns perfectly. Sheikh blessed to Marshaikh's living the dream Manshar Santorini." The timestamp showed it was posted 2 days ago. 2 days ago, while I was lying awake wondering how I'd cover my own mortgage if my biggest client delayed payment. Scrolled through her recent posts with shaking hands. Paris last week, Emma posing in front of the Eiffel Tower with a champagne flute. Rome the week before, Derek grinning beside the Colosseum. Nice Monaco, Barcelona, 3 weeks of luxury European vacation, documented in stunning detail. Across Instagram and Facebook, designer clothes, 5-star hotels, Michelin-starred restaurants. They'd even posted stories from business class on their flights. The math was simple and devastating. A European vacation like that, spontaneous, first class, hitting multiple countries, would cost at least $40,000. Money they claimed not to have. Money they'd borrowed from me while crying about bankruptcy and foreclosure. I screenshot everything, every post, every story, every tagged location. Then I called Emma, straight to voicemail. I tried Derek, same thing. I sent a text asking for an explanation. It showed as delivered but went unread for hours. The next morning, I tried calling again. This time, an automated message informed me that my number had been blocked. I tried texting from my work phone. The message came back undeliverable. I'd been blocked there too. That's when the real betrayal began. Within hours of my blocked messages, my phone started ringing. First Mom, then Dad, then my Aunt Lisa. Emma had apparently called everyone, tears flowing again, claiming I was harassing her about money and ruining her vacation. According to her version, I'd given them money as a wedding gift, not a loan, and was now trying to extort them for more. She told them I was calling constantly, demanding repayment of a gift and threatening legal action. Mom was furious with me for ambushing Emma during her first real vacation in years. Dad lectured me about family loyalty and how I should be happy that Emma was finally able to relax after Derek's difficult business situation. Even Aunt Lisa called me selfish for trying to take back a wedding gift just because I was jealous of their success. Only my Uncle Mike seemed skeptical, asking quietly why I'd suddenly want money back from a 3-year-old wedding gift. But even he didn't push when Emma broke down crying during the family group video call, claiming I was harassing her and Derek for no reason. The gaslighting was masterful. Emma had turned my legitimate concern about stolen money into a story about a jealous, controlling brother who couldn't stand to see his sister happy. She painted herself as the victim of my financial abuse and manipulation. Most of the family rallied around her, leaving me feeling completely isolated and questioning my own memory. I spent 2 weeks in this parallel universe where I was the problem, where my theft concerns were dismissed as jealousy, where Emma's obvious lies were treated as gospel truth. Every family group chat became a minefield. Every phone call turned into a lecture about my attitude. I started doubting my own memory, wondering if I'd somehow misunderstood our agreement. Then I remembered the text messages. I'd saved everything. Emma's original desperate call asking for help, our text exchanges about the loan terms, her promises to repay by May 1st. I had bank records showing the $75,000 transfer, time-stamped and documented. Most importantly, I had screenshots of their European vacation, posted while they claimed to be financially ruined. I compiled everything into a 8-on detailed document, bank statements, text message screenshots, Instagram posts with dates and locations, estimated costs for their vacation based on the hotels and restaurants they'd tagged. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable, but before I shared it with family, I did something else. I called a lawyer. The attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen, who specialized in family financial disputes, reviewed my documentation during our initial consultation. She confirmed what I already knew. This was fraud. Emma had obtained money under false pretenses, used it for purposes other than stated, and then attempted to avoid repayment through manipulation and lies. We had grounds for both civil and criminal charges. Patricia explained the reality of pursuing legal action against family. Criminal fraud cases involving relatives moved slowly, often taking a year or more to resolve. The police would need to investigate, the DA would need to decide whether to prosecute, and Emma would likely hire a lawyer to fight the charges. Even with overwhelming evidence, it would be a long, expensive process. But she also explained something else. Sometimes, the threat of criminal charges motivated quick settlement negotiations. If Emma was faced with the reality of a fraud conviction and potential jail time, she might choose to negotiate repayment rather than fight in court. Update. Several people asked why I didn't just handle this privately within the family. After Being blocked, lied about, and gaslit for weeks, I realized family wasn't protecting me. It was being weaponized against me. Sometimes you have to use the legal system to get basic honesty. Anyone else been forced to sue family? Given Emma's behavior and the family dynamics, Patricia recommended starting with a police report. Fraud of this magnitude was serious, and an official police report would establish a record that would be harder for Emma to dispute or manipulate. Filing the police report was surreal. Sitting in a sterile government office telling Detective Martinez about how my sister had stolen my life savings felt like stepping into someone else's nightmare. Martinez listened carefully, took notes, and accepted my evidence professionally. But he also warned me that family financial disputes were complicated. The DA's office would review the case and decide whether to pursue criminal charges, a process that could take several months. Still, the police report was immediate and official. Armed with this document and Patricia's legal strategy, I finally called a family meeting. I didn't tell them why I wanted everyone together, just said I had important news to share about the Emma situation. Mom suggested we meet at their house on Sunday, and everyone agreed to come. Emma and Derek, apparently back from their European adventure, confirmed they'd be there too. Walking into that living room on Sunday afternoon felt like entering hostile territory. Emma was already holding court, looking tanned and relaxed, showing off jewelry she'd bought in Paris. Derek was animated, telling Dad about the incredible opportunities he'd discovered while traveling. Mom was fussing over them both, asking about their favorite restaurants and sites. I waited until everyone was seated, then pulled out my folder. I started with the bank record, a clean official document showing my $75,000 transfer to Emma's account on March 15th. The room went quiet. Then I showed the text messages where she begged for help, promised it was temporary, guaranteed repayment by May 1st. I read her exact words aloud, including her tearful pleas about bankruptcy and foreclosure. Next came the Instagram screenshots, printed in full color with dates and locations clearly visible. Emma in Santorini on May 18th, Derek in Monaco on May 22nd. Both of them toasting with champagne in a Barcelona restaurant that I'd looked up online. Average meal cost $300 per person. Finally, I showed them the police report. Official letterhead, case number, Detective Martinez's signature, fraud investigation opened, civil lawsuit to follow. The silence stretched for what felt like hours. Emma's face had gone from tanned gold to ashen gray. Derek was staring at his hands. Mom looked between the documents and Emma like she was trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. Dad broke the silence first, his voice tight with anger. He asked Emma directly if she'd lied to them about the wedding gift story. Emma's silence was deafening. Then the denials started. Emma claimed the vacation was paid for separately, that Derek had closed a small deal that covered their travel expenses. But when Dad pressed for details about this mysterious deal, Derek couldn't provide specifics. Their story kept changing. First, it was a consulting contract, then an investment return, then money from Derek's parents. Uncle Mike, who'd been quiet during my presentation, finally spoke up. He asked the question everyone was thinking. If they had money for a $40,000 vacation, why couldn't they repay their brother? Emma broke down completely then, admitting they'd used some of my money for the trip, but claiming it was an emergency. Derek had been so stressed about the business failure that she'd been worried about his mental health. The vacation was supposed to help him recover so he could focus on earning money to pay me back. The explanation fell apart under the weight of its own absurdity. Even Mom, who normally defended Emma's every decision, looked disgusted by the manipulation. The aftermath was swift and devastating. The criminal investigation moved slowly, as Detective Martinez had warned, but the family consequences were immediate. Within a week, Emma and Derek found themselves completely isolated from their usual support system. Dad stopped taking Derek's calls about potential business opportunities. Mom canceled the weekly family dinners that Emma had relied on for free meals. Uncle Mike, who owned a small construction company, rescinded his offer to hire Derek for the summer. The family ATM that Emma and Derek had relied on for years suddenly shut down permanently. Patricia Chen filed a civil lawsuit while we waited for the criminal case to develop. The civil process moved faster. Emma and Derek were served with papers demanding immediate repayment plus damages, interest, and legal fees. Their lawyer, a overworked public defender who looked exhausted during our first mediation, advised them that fighting the case with overwhelming evidence would only increase their eventual penalties. But Emma wasn't ready to give up without one last manipulation attempt. She started calling family members individually, trying to rebuild her narrative. She told Mom that I was destroying her marriage over money. She told Dad that Derek was suicidal over the legal stress. She even called my Aunt Lisa, claiming they'd pay me back if I'd just drop the criminal charges and stop trying to ruin their lives. The family's response surprised her. Dad told her to take responsibility for her choices. Mom said she was tired of Emma's lies and drama. Even Aunt Lisa, who'd initially believed Emma's wedding gift story, told her to figure it out herself. The financial pressure mounted quickly. Emma and Derek, already drowning in debt from their previous lifestyle, couldn't afford both legal fees and basic living expenses. Their credit cards were maxed out. Their lease payments were behind. The European vacation had been their final expensive hurrah before reality crashed down. After 3 months of legal proceedings, Emma and Derek agreed to a settlement that required full restitution plus 20% in damages and legal fees. To raise the money, they had to sell Derek's BMW, liquidate their savings, and take out a second mortgage on their rental house. Derek also had to liquidate his retirement account, paying massive early withdrawal penalties. The money came back to me in installments over 6 months, along with a formal letter of apology that their lawyer had clearly written. Emma never contacted me directly during this period. All communication went through attorneys and mediators. By the time the settlement was complete, Emma and Derek had moved into a small apartment across town. Derek was working at a Honda dealership, his first steady job in years. Emma had taken a position at a local bank, ironically helping other people manage money responsibly. They deleted their social media accounts after the vacation posts became evidence in legal proceedings. The designer clothes and expensive lifestyle vanished overnight, replaced by the reality of entry-level salaries and massive debt payments. Update. Many people asked if I felt guilty about the legal action. Honestly, not for a second. Emma made her choice when she stole my money and lied about it. Actions have consequences, regardless of family relationships. Would you have pushed for criminal charges against a sibling? 18 months later, I'm sitting in my new home office, emergency fund rebuilt, and financial security restored. Emma and I don't speak, not out of anger anymore, but because we simply have nothing left to say to each other. She crossed a line that can't be uncrossed, violated a trust that can't be repaired. The experience taught me valuable lessons about family, money, and manipulation. I learned that blood relationships don't excuse toxic behavior, that trust once broken is nearly impossible to rebuild, and that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is hold people accountable for their choices. Emma eventually stabilized her life, though from a distance. She and Derek are still together, working steady jobs and apparently living within their means for the first time in their marriage. The criminal charges were eventually dropped after she completed the civil settlement and attended financial counseling courses. As for me, I'm more careful with money, more selective with trust, and more willing to enforce boundaries. My emergency fund sits safely in a high-yield savings account, untouchable by anyone but me. When family members ask for financial help now, I have a simple answer. I can recommend a good bank for a loan application. The family dynamics have permanently shifted. Holiday gatherings are smaller and quieter. Emma and Derek attend separately from me, if at all. Mom and Dad have learned to plan events that don't require us to interact. It's not ideal, but it's honest. Sometimes the hardest lessons come from the people closest to us. Emma taught me that family isn't defined by shared DNA, but by shared values and mutual respect. She chose money over relationships, lies over truth, manipulation over honesty. I chose accountability over enabling, self-respect over false peace. I've never regretted that choice, and I never will.